It is time to take a look at the just second Aether Model aircraft model in Scale 500. And while we had a true banger in the last episode of review, one thing is delivering once, the other thing is delivering consistently. And if they can do just that, that is what we want to find out in today's review. For full transparency, I however should say that of course I have also been given this model from Aether Model, but I will as always give you my honest opinion. And videos like this are also made possible thanks to my great partners here on the channel, Jumbolino Model, who have great models at reasonable prices and really good customer service. So do check them out. You can find a link to them in the video description below. With that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at a Boeing 787-9 of Korean Air. At the front of the box we have a lovely rendition of the aircraft. We have the Korean Air branding, and as always with Aether Model we have the box here that we can open up, so we can take a glimpse of the aircraft model inside with this cutout. But we then also have this lovely image of the aircraft in real life. We have a description of airline and aircraft, and then on the back side of the box we get a bunch more information with specifications. We get a hint to a base plate inside, more on that just a little bit later. We can have the identifier as to what production year, batch, and so on that is in, so that's really great. Something I also would like to highlight here is the fact that this is a limited edition, and I specifically asked about what their deal is with limited edition. And apart from wanting to add more value to selected models, they also explained, since this is a 787-9 in the now old standard livery of Korean Air, Aether explained to me, well, this is an aircraft model that will not be delivered like this anymore in real life, and therefore they want to do it once, but they don't want to re-release it. So this is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you want to have this aircraft model from a die-cast manufacturer in Scale 500, this is it. Where I also would like to say this is it is when we look at the box in general, because from all sides there are markers identifying what aircraft model I have inside, so it doesn't matter how you store your box, you will always be able to see what is inside it. Very, very neat stuff. And what is also inside the box and hinted at the outside of the box is a base plate. This is a piece of cardboard where they have printed an apron on. And as always, they go with a design from the home airport of the airline that is featured. So in this case, this is a stand from Seoul Incheon Airport. And I must say, the print quality is really, really lovely. The feel of just the base plate is really lovely. And of course, in the grand scheme of things, a completely unnecessary feature, but just very lovely and adds to the overall value of the product. And here she is, the Boeing 787-9 in the now old standard livery of Korean Air. When Aether Model started planning this aircraft model, I actually believe that the Korean Air new standard livery hadn't been revealed yet, or at least it was just around the time when the new livery was announced. But of course, also at that time, there was still no 787-9 in the Korean Air fleet with the new livery, so when they started planning the model, it was truly still the standard livery of the airline. In any case, it is great to see this aircraft model, because Korean Air is of course a critically underserved airline in Scale 500, believe it or not. So how has Aether done with this second model in their first batch? That is what we want to find out. We start off with the tail section, where we on the vertical stabilizer find the iconic Korean Air branding. Underneath that we have the full registration code of the aircraft. On top of the stabilizer we then find the South Korean flag. We should also mention the printed detailing on the horizontal stabilizer. On the fuselage we then have the aircraft type specification. We find the Dreamliner branding. For Aether to set itself more apart from Air Boeing's around this part of the aircraft at least, I would have wished for a little bit more detailing in perhaps the cabin doors, but I know this is something they're working on and will be added in batch 2, and batch 3 will get even more printed details, so I don't really have any quarrels with that. We also have some detailing at the very tail of the aircraft in form of the APU exhaust. And then at the front of the aircraft, we get a bunch more detailing. We have, of course, the Korean Air branding. Underneath that, we have a bunch of markings. Also here, this is something that will have even more printed details in the future. So that's really great to see. We, of course, also have the Sky Team logos next to the cabin doors and also just behind the cockpit windows. Underneath the metallic sheet line, we have some Korean writing. I'm sure I have been told once what that actually says. I assume it's Korean Air, just in Korean writing, but if you want to remind my memory what that actually says, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. The cockpit section itself has the cockpit windows with the window wipers. Above that we have the emergency hatch for the cockpit, and we of course also have the circular marking around the radome. Great stuff here, but also, for example, petrol tubes would have been nice. Again, a detail that will be added with later releases from Aether Model. The engine nacelles have been kept in all white, just as the belly of the aircraft, but we have a bunch of detailing here in form of the silver leading edge, the Korean Air branding, the safety markings, and also small other markings and hatches. Really, really lovely stuff when it comes to the printed detailing, but also the physical detailing of these engines I think looks really nice. The chevron nozzles I think look great, and also here when we look into the front with the very nice looking engine fan blades. Then we can move on to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at, starting off with the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers carved out fairly nicely, although a little bit drowned away by the white base paint. But we have the markings as to where to walk on the wing and the full registration code of the aircraft, that we then also find featured on the underside of the wing alongside more nice physical detailing. And when we then look at the landing gear, I guess by now we can say this is the standard landing gear that Aether Model is using on all their Dreamliner aircraft models. But in all seriousness, the main landing gear looks really great. Also the front landing gear looks very neat. And I'm of course especially happy about the fact that we do have printed details here. That is fantastic. The belly of the aircraft on first glimpse doesn't offer much, but there's actually one thing that is great that it's not there, and that is there is no hole in the fuselage. Wings adds them and then forgets to give you the stance. Aether Model does not believe in that nonsense, so the models do not have the hole, which means when there are printed details, they won't get destroyed. But this is a point where they definitely can improve and will improve. That's, for example, adding printed details around the main landing gear hatches. The front landing gear has already that print. What we should also notice here is that we actually do have the Remy intakes. They're granted not nearly as pronounced as with Happer wings. I think with Happer it looks better, but they are there, so that's at least something. On the top of the fuselage we then find more something in form of a little printed detail, a tiny little set dome, and this is something they would not be able to add as a physical detailing, but adding it as a printed detailing I think is a perfectly fine compromise. And then last but certainly not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 787-9 in the now old standard livery of Korean Air from Aether Model in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? So this is the only second aircraft model coming out of the Aether Model factory. It holds the standard of the first aircraft model, which is great, and we of course know that this standard will be improved with the coming batches, which is really lovely to hear, and of course will be even more lovely to actually see once it is delivered. But as always, we of course are looking at what we have in front of us, and that is what we want to judge or determine how it is working for us. And honestly speaking, I'm quite happy with this aircraft model. I was a little bit concerned originally with the color, the blue color of the Korean Air on this aircraft model, where they either had really nailed down the Korean color, but the more time I spend with the aircraft model, the more I compare it with other die-cast models in various scales and also with images from real life, I actually think that Aether Model is pretty much spot on with the Korean Air blue. At least for my taste, that's really how it should look. Where Aether is also holding its consistency is with the front landing gear. Not just the fact that we have printed details, but also that it makes the fuselage tilt slightly downwards, where Herpa's front wheels of the Dreamliner make the fuselage tend to tilt a little bit upwards. And tilting downwards in this case is definitely the right choice, definitely the way to go. So keeping consistency here is also great, and lovely to see that Aether Model is really having a really high common standard across the aircraft models. But that doesn't mean that there isn't of course also still room for improvement here and there. Let's take the wings for example. We have already some lovely printed details here, and I can say, because I have seen the plans and some first line drafts for future products, that there will be added even more printed details here. I won't say what they are, but needless to say, the standard is getting higher and higher here. But I think where there is room for improvement on the wings is with the physical detailing. well, actually is a mixture between physical detailing and printed detailing, because it's the flaps, slats and spoilers, how they are carved out. I think that could be a little bit more pronounced. We've seen it on the EVA Air and now also on this Korean Air, that these aeronautical parts of the wings are drowned away a little bit by the base paint. If they are carved out a little bit more pronounced, well, then the base paint won't basically swallow up that detailing. But it still looks fine. It's not a major issue. The model overall looks really, really great, and honestly speaking, I couldn't be much happier with it. So yeah, overall really great physical detailing, great printed detailing, also the print quality itself just being really good, and what I am a huge sucker for, consistency when it comes to detailing and quality. And what we can't forget to mention, all that for 5 to 10 euros less than a standard Herpa Wings model. So that is also why for the second model I, with no shadow of a doubt, can say this aircraft model is worth having in one's collection. And with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. Feel free to leave a like. If you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? If you have any thoughts or comments on this video on the model, let me know in the comment section down below. And with that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.